Christmas Angel. True story. A runaway boy meets an angel with an invisible letter. Once again, I had run away and really do not know why. I would walk out the gate to go to school and then keep walking and walking and walking. I had just turned 11 years old the week before. It was almost dark. I was tired, scared, cold, and all alone. I had not eaten all day and was afraid to turn myself into the police. I knew I would receive another beating once I returned to the Children's Home Society in Jacksonville, Florida. There was nothing for me to do except keep on walking. As darkness fell, I made my way over to the city park located on Park Street. I entered the darkened area and sat down on one of the wooden benches, hoping to avoid the police cars. It was cold, and I began to shiver uncontrollably. All was quiet except for the passing cars in the distance. "Well, hello, young man," a voice came from behind me. I jumped, almost falling off the park bench. My heart was beating 90 miles per hour, and I could feel it thumping in the side of my neck. I gasped, but I could hardly catch my breath. I looked up and saw a woman standing behind me in the shadows. "You look cold," she said. "I'm cold. I'm real cold." I continued to shiver. "Here, wrap this around you." I watched as she took off her shawl and wrapped it around my shoulders. "But ain't you gonna be cold now?" "I'll be okay." "Is there anything else you need?" she questioned. I sure could use some food. "Follow me," she said. I walked with her about 20 feet. Then she stopped under one of the park streetlights. She held out her hand and said, "Here, you take this letter and give it to the store owner." I looked at her outstretched arm, but saw nothing in her hand. "There's nothing in your hand," I told her. "Roger, reach out and take the letter from my hand," she replied. Slowly I reached out, acting as though I was taking something from her hand. "Now close your thumb and finger and hold the paper tightly," she instructed. I closed my thumb and finger as though I were grasping the letter. "Take it to any store owner." "What do I say to them?" "Nothing," she replied. "But what store do I go to?" "It doesn't matter," she said, as she smiled. I turned and began walking toward 5 Points. Several blocks down the road, I came to a store with a woman sitting behind a counter. I opened the door, walked in, and stopped directly in front of her. "Can I help you?" asked the woman. I was hesitant to talk and had no idea what I should say. Very slowly, I held out my hand toward her. I watched her face to see if she might think I was crazy or something. "Is that for me?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." I looked down at the floor. She reached out, and as her hand touched mine, I opened my tightly closed fingers and stood there waiting. She pulled back, smiled, and looked down at her hands. She immediately turned and walked to the back of the store. I began to inch toward the front door for fear she might be calling the police. Just as I made it to the front door, I stopped as I heard someone call my name. I turned around and saw the woman holding a paper plate. "Roger, here is something for you to eat." "How did you know my name?" I asked her. "It was on the paper." "But there wasn't no paper." "I didn't see no paper," I told her. She smiled and motioned for me to eat by twirling her finger in front of her mouth. Within 2 or 3 minutes, I had downed the entire plate of food and several Coca-Colas. "Are you full?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Then it's time for you to go." I turned to leave when I felt her hand on my shoulder. "Here, your paper." "You almost forgot your letter," she said, holding out her hand. Again, seeing nothing, I held out my hand and closed my thumb and finger as though I were taking something from her. Tightly grasping nothing more than air, I walked out into the street and headed back to the park. When I arrived, the old woman was sitting on the park bench. "Did you eat?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am, and I had 2 Coca-Colas too." "Good. How do you do that magic?" I asked her. "It's not magic, but how does everyone know my name?" "It is written in the letter." "Can I have the letter so I can be magic too?" I asked. She reached out, took my hand, and opened my tightly closed fingers. Whatever was being held between my fingers, she took and placed into her apron pocket. "Would you help someone if they were hungry?" she asked me. "Yes, ma'am." Would you help someone if they were hurt, cold, or scared? Yes, ma'am. I would be their friend. Roger, you are very lucky, little boy. You will never need the letter, she responded. She stood up, kissed me on the forehead, removed the shawl from my shoulders, and began walking down the sidewalk. I watched as she disappeared into the darkness. Rainbow Angel Story. A rainbow sign shows her that God is near. About 3 weeks ago, I was outside and looking at the clouds, hoping to see an angel. I have prayed for this several times before. I have always been fascinated with angels, and I truly believe in God and all of His power and blessings. This particular day, I was hoping to see one. I finally gave up and thought to myself that I was not special enough to see an angel, or God wanted me to fix some things in my life before He would allow me to witness such a blessing. Just as I gave up, I looked up one more time. The clouds were moving fast over the sun, and I saw a perfectly round rainbow circle from beyond one of the clouds. It was not an arc. I looked up again, and it was gone. I started crying. I don't know why I was crying, but I was literally sobbing. I cried all the way up the stairs to my apartment. When I got inside, my sobs stopped almost immediately as they had started. Was this an angel or God Himself? I smile every day now because I have proof that the God I serve is really listening and loving me. True Angel Story. Haunted by spirits, a child finds peace in a glowing angel's light. When I was a small child, my family and I lived in a fair-sized city. The home we lived in was rented and was extremely haunted. I remember my uncle came to stay with us during a rough patch in his life and was given the only room left in the house that was unoccupied, the attic room. He ended up moving out abruptly because he couldn't take the footsteps going up and down the stairs all night and his door being opened and closed. As I said, I was very young and did hear footsteps going up and down the stairs. Every night, though everyone was asleep in their beds, often I would get frightened and find my way to my parents' room to sleep in their bed. One particular night, I was on my way to their room when something in the living room caught my attention. I walked to the doorway of the living room to see a large man, dressed like a Viking, sitting in the armchair laughing at me. His teeth were oversized, his head was enormous, and his intent was obviously sinister. I did not approach him, but instead calmly walked to my parents' room as I had planned with a complete sense of peace. A peace that at the time I did not know the origin of. A few years later, I found out where that peace comes from. My family was moving into a large farmhouse on a working farm in the country. One of the first nights in our new home, my brother, sister, and I stayed with my aunt, uncle, and their kids as my parents were both out of town. In the middle of the night, I awoke to a blinding light coming from behind the closet doors. They opened and there stood an angel. The angel gave off such peace from its being that there was no fear. Some years after that, we moved again to another farm. This farm had a barn with a basement and no electricity. I was sent to that basement for a tool one night in late November after 9 p.m. As I approached the bottom of the stairs and grabbed in the dark for the tool I was sent to retrieve, and as I turned to run back up the stairs, I was stopped in my tracks by a blinding light coming from the corner of the barn. I immediately had a sense of complete peace and no fear whatsoever. I believe there are angels and demons. I believe a spirit being that exudes a sinister countenance is a demon, and an angel will always bring a sense of peace. I also believe that a sinister being can exude a false sense of peace in order to deceive. During my childhood, I had countless recurring dreams that included fighting demon spirits all night. The only way I could end the dream and the torment that accompanied it would be to concentrate on the one being that can bring true peace, and that is God.
If you believe in signs from beyond, like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment. They watch, they guide, they listen.